Empower Your Inner Millionaire, A Woman's Guide to Financial Freedom Through Real Estate Investing by Christine McCarran, read by the author. Introduction. Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. Henry Ford. The major fortunes in America have been made in land. John D. Rockefeller. My parents bought their first home, a two-bedroom Cape, in 1963 for $4,000 and sold it in 1970 for $15,500. The current market value of my childhood home is $361,000. Like most of us, my parents sold that house to buy another property. But imagine if they'd held on to it, collected rent every month, and invested some of the equity in other properties. Now, in their retirement years, they'd be living large, and I probably wouldn't have had to put myself through community college. How about you? Are you going to doom your kids to mediocrity and a third-rate education, or are you ready to create a legacy? Why real estate is great. Ability to leverage. Why can't you take out a mortgage to buy a mutual fund? If stocks and bonds are such a great investment, why won't a bank loan you money to buy them? If you want to buy $250,000 stake in a hedge fund, you pretty much need $250,000. If you want to buy $250,000 in real estate, you only need $50,000, less in some cases. And in addition to banks, there are a lot of other people willing to loan you money to buy real estate. Tax deductions. When I bought a home in the White Mountains to rent part-time, my accountant said, "Don't worry. The house will never show a profit." He wasn't trying to discourage me. He just confirmed what savvy investors know. Investment in real estate is an excellent legal way to pay lower taxes. Every time I spend an enjoyable day or weekend in the mountains, the gas, mileage, tolls, and lunch are tax deductible. Any work that I do to improve the property is a deduction, as are the costs for heating and cooling the house, cable and internet, electricity, etc. Depreciation. One major tax advantage is called depreciation. The Internal Revenue Service understands that buildings don't stay static. There's wear and tear, systems age, kitchens need to be remodeled, etc. So the IRS allows you to depreciate the value of the building over a number of years. From a tax perspective, this makes it harder for you to show a profit on your taxes from the rents. Less profit means less tax. And while your building is depreciating on paper, it's usually appreciating in real life. Real property has a depreciation schedule with the IRS, used annually to deduct a certain amount of value from the asset. For example, residential real estate has a 27.5-year depreciation rate. The IRS expects the building to be worth zero at the end of 27.5 years. Your annual depreciation on a $275,000 building would be $275,000 divided by 27.5, or $10,000. So you can deduct $10,000 from your taxes from the value. Your annual depreciation on a $275,000 building would be $275,000 divided by 27.5 equals $10,000, or a tax deduction of $10,000 per year for 27.5 years. Note that land is never depreciated. Although it sounds complicated, the important benefit is that you pay less tax on your investment property income. You pay less tax on your investment property income than on money earned in other ways, like wages and dividends. Diversity. There are several ways to invest in real estate, depending on how involved you want to be. Commercial, residential, vacation, and industrial real estate and land are all managed differently and demand different skill sets from the owner. We'll go into more detail later, but if you're eager to see what kind of property might best suit you, try our online questionnaire at EYIMbook.com. Tangibility. Real estate is real. It's a place that you can visit. You manage it. You decide what will happen there. You can live or work there. You can see it, feel it, touch it. You control it. Unlike the company whose stocks you own, stability, predictability. Real estate doesn't suddenly lose huge percentages of value. Unlike stocks, real estate has never had a flash crash. Big landowners can't sell all of their real estate online overnight and radically alter the market. Change usually happens more slowly. And if you pay attention, you can, much more accurately than with stocks and bonds, figure out where the market is heading and act accordingly. Forced retirement account. Real estate investing is a forced retirement account. Paying down the mortgage is like a mandatory savings account, and the appreciation that your property gains is like compounding interest. And it's your tenants who are making the deposits. Who says it's a man's world? To learn more about real estate investing, I read dozens of books from every angle: commercial, residential, fixer-upper, fix, buy and hold, you name it. And guess what? They were all written by men. Some people imagine real estate investors clad in tool belts fixing toilets at midnight. You may think that if you don't want that kind of life, you won't make it as a real estate investor. Some say women can't be tough with tenants or that tenants won't pay and will take advantage. Read on and meet some of the many women who know the truth. Women, and I'm generalizing, tend to be more analytical, better with numbers, better with people, and smarter than men. All critical traits in real estate investing. You can rock it as a real estate investor. I know it. Congratulations on starting the exciting journey to financial freedom. You are part of an elite group dedicated to improving their lives and leaving a legacy. Take a minute now and pat yourself on the back before moving on to chapter 1. Move out of your comfort zone. You can only grow if you're willing to feel awkward and uncomfortable when you try something new. Brian Tracy. Introduction takeaways. Real estate is superior to many other investments. Understanding the market cycle is critical to success. You can achieve financial freedom as a real estate investor. Chapter 1. What the heck do you want? If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. Lewis Carroll. Goals for Chapter 1. Understand what you want real estate to do for you. Ensure that it is in line with what you want for your life and create SMART goals. Is this a touchy-feely book? The first questions I ask when working with a new client are, what are your goals? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Sounds like your last job interview, right? It's true. Goals are an important predictor of success in the corporate world. Once you know where you want to go, finding the right road is much easier. Kendra and Zahir, who plan to sell their U.S. assets in 5 years and move to Canada, are going to have a different investment plan than Natalie and James, who plan to stay in the area indefinitely. Similarly, John, who won't buy a house if he doesn't like the color of the wall paint, will necessarily need a different strategy from Anne Marie, who's handy and can increase the property value with sweat equity. If you want to retire in 30 years with $4,000 monthly income, you will have a very different investment strategy from someone who wants to retire in 5 years with $10,000 a month. If you haven't done this type of goal setting process before, you may be surprised at its power. Goals allow you to control the direction of change in your favor. Brian Tracy. 5 fingered goals. Plan to develop goals for the 5 major areas of your life: family, fitness, money, spirituality, and work. We are only going to talk about your money goals here. On your own time, please create goals for all 5 areas so you can be sure your money goals are in sync with your other life goals. Money. How much money do you need each month to live the life you want? At what age do you want to retire? Think about all your current expenses alongside other costs you'd incur if you weren't working and had more time to do other things. Will you stay in your current house? Will you remain in the area or move to a place with more agreeable weather and a lower cost of living? Will you travel? Will you join a country club? Will you entertain more or less than you do today? Maybe you'd like to keep working at a job that is more fulfilling but pays less. Maybe you'll want to live a nomadic life, buying, renovating, and selling property in a new area each time. Visualize the life you would ideally like to lead, and then we'll figure out how to fund it. SMART goals. Most of what I know about goals, I learned from Brian Tracy. His book, Goals: How to Get Everything You Want Faster Than You Ever Thought Possible, introduced me to the nuts and bolts of goal setting. Before that, I believed in easy goals, like write a check to the law of attraction on the eve of a full moon, that didn't require a lot of thought and that I never actually believed. Setting SMART goals clarifies your thinking and positions you for success. Specific. Why isn't writing a financial goal as simple as saying, I want to be rich? Imagine that you're writing a screenplay for your future self that someone else will direct. You will have to be as specific as possible. What does it actually mean to you to be rich? What will your life look like? What will your first thought be when you jump out of bed? Help the actress who will play you understand your motivation. Measurable. In the case of goals, it's not gauche to talk about money. How much do you actually need to live the life that you've specifically designed? After doing my budget, it turned out that I only need about $500,000. I initially thought that I would need millions. Create a budget for yourself at EYIMbook.com. Attainable. When I thought I would need several $1,000,000 to be financially free, it felt kind of hopeless. To succeed, you must be able to completely believe that your goal is attainable. It's okay to make a goal of having $50 million, but if you don't truly believe you can achieve that goal, you won't. Start with a goal that stretches you, but not too far. As soon as you attain that goal, you can set another one. Relevant. For goals to resonate and have the best chance of success, they need to evoke in us an emotion. Sometimes it's hard for a purely financial goal to do that. So focus on what having this money will mean to you and to your family. How will this money enable you to make a difference in the world? Focus on what you will do with this tool that we call money, time measured. The final key to successful goals is to give them a deadline. You have to be able to stop, look back, and celebrate your success. On any given day, you have to be able to compare your current reality with your goal and see the progress. Ideally, there'll be something you can do every day that will bring your goal closer. Write down your goals, make plans to achieve them, and work on your plans every single day. Brian Tracy. Chapter 1, Action Items. Write goals for the 5 major areas of your life: family, fitness, money, spirituality, and work. Make the goals SMART: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time measured. Identify and fill any knowledge gaps. Read your goals every morning and evening. Revise your goals until they energize you. Chapter 2, Money, Money, Money. No man is rich whose expenditures exceed his means. No man is poor whose incomings exceed his outgoings. Thomas Chandler Halliburton. Those who attend to small expenses are always rich. John Adams. Goals for Chapter 2. Use your money goals from Chapter 1. See if you can reduce the amount that you need monthly. Understand what makes an investment risky. Less than a decade ago, I was deeply in debt. I had 3 condos that were losing money in value daily, tons of credit card debt, 2 failing businesses, and a car payment. It felt like no matter how much I made, I couldn't get ahead of it all. I did some research into filing for bankruptcy and found out that it would cost thousands of dollars to prepare the paperwork and file. I decided that if I was going to spend thousands of dollars, I wanted to at least pay some of my bills with it. I got out my computer and made a list of all of my obligations. Every cent that I owed anyone was recorded into the spreadsheet. I started to research ways to get out of debt. Instead of paying a tiny amount on all the bills, I focused on the ones with the highest interest rate. Through a lot of hard work and some miracles, I managed to pay everything off and get myself up to 0. In the process, I reduced my monthly expenses dramatically. Now I can live quite well on a very small amount, which affords a wealth of freedom and flexibility. For a look at my spreadsheet and one that you can use, go to the website eyimbook.com/budget. Check it out. In Chapter 1, I asked you to estimate how much money you need each month and how much you anticipate spending if you were no longer working. If you're able to reduce your expenses, you can minimize the distance between you and your goals. The easiest way to have lots of money is to keep what you earn. The less you spend, the more you have. Even something as simple as bringing a bag lunch or making your own coffee instead of buying a latte for $7 can add up to big savings. If you don't believe me, believe Benjamin Franklin, who said, "Beware of little expenses. A small leak will sink a great ship." Start by keeping a spending diary for a month. It's not as hard as it sounds if you use your credit cards for every purchase. Your credit card company most likely offers a report that will categorize your expenses. You can export that report and add details. Even if they don't offer a report, you can download your statement and do the same thing. Find every item on the list that could possibly be eliminated. Add up those items and multiply by 12. That's how much you can save in 1 year. Years ago, I went out of town for a month and forgot to pay my cable bill. When it arrived the following month with a double payment due, I realized that I was shelling out almost $200 and I hadn't watched TV once during that time. So I canceled cable and became a member of an independent theater nearby. For $200 a year, I get free movies Monday through Thursday, plus free popcorn. Now I can see first-run movies, have a free night out with popcorn, and support a great local venue, all while saving $1,000 a year. Be creative about cutting things from your budget. Make it a fun challenge and see what you can substitute that will save money while enriching your life. As you eliminate the expenses, keep putting out the money. If you bring your own lunch, put the $15 a day that you would have spent into a special account. Add the $7 for your latte and the cigarette money that you save by quitting. Add to that the $50 per month you save by doing your own manicures and the $1,000 a month you save by canceling your cable TV. The thousands of dollars that you save can become your down payment for a property that will support you into old age. I promise that the excitement of pursuing that goal will outweigh the minor inconvenience of the things that you're trimming out of your budget. Once you've got your property and your income stream, you can keep your expenses low and retire sooner than you ever thought possible. Or you can buy a few more properties and spend the extra money on anything you want. There are advantages to the conservative approach that you may not have considered, like teaching your kids to conserve. The Millionaire Next Door, a book by doctors Thomas J. Stanley and William D. Danko, is full of stories about people who never earned more than a five-figure income, but who retired with millions of dollars, and of high earners who can't afford to stop working. Teaching young people the value of saving can change their lives. It's also fun and challenging to find new ways to save. Discount travel, free cultural concerts, shows and movies, volunteering at your community theater in exchange for free admission. These are fun ways to save money that will introduce you to interesting people, new activities, and adventures. What creative ideas can you conceive? Risk factors. In general, the more risk you're willing to incur in any type of investment, the more the potential reward. Real estate is no different, but if you remember that the market has cycles, you should be able to avoid disaster. Location, location, location. I live in the Boston area. The universities and hospitals supply a steady stream of transient residents, so rental housing is always in demand. The strong rental market attracts investors who compete with owner occupants for the available housing inventory. This demand keeps the real estate market pretty stable. When market dips do occur, they are likely much less dramatic than outside the city. In the most recent market low, Boston area real estate lost about 25% of its value, while 1 hour away in Worcester, an area that also has several universities and hospitals, but less demand, some property was down 70% from market highs. A two-bedroom condo in Boston today averages $823,000, while a two-bedroom condo in Worcester averages $189,000. Boston is going to be a much more expensive location to start your real estate empire, but the property will be more likely to retain its value during the down cycle. Cap rate. If you spend 4 times more to buy the Boston condo, are you going to make 4 times the rent? Most likely not. Later, we'll talk about cap rate, and you'll learn that in general, a riskier investment should have a higher yield. Anne-Marie and Elif. Anne-Marie and Elif both inherited some money. Both decided to invest in real estate. Anne-Marie bought a 3-family house in a marginal part of Boston, considered up and coming. A marginal area is one where there are factors like a higher than average crime rate, lower than average school ranking, and employment rate, etc., that make it less desirable. Elif bought a pair of 2-bedroom condos in a more stable area of Boston, one with lots of wealthy students and ambitious young professionals. Anne-Marie leveraged her property to the max, putting down only 3.5%, and she was able to do that because she was going to live there. Elif paid 100% in cash because Anne-Marie was planning to live in one of the units. Each had 2 units available to rent. So whose strategy is better? Elif with all cash in a stable area, or Anne-Marie with mostly leverage in a riskier area? That's the beauty of real estate investing. There is no one-size-fits-all answer. Each person did what best suited her goals. The important thing is that they both left themselves a financial buffer, bought at the right time in the market cycle, and considered their goals before purchasing. Future potential. What if you knew that potential growth was happening in a town near you, and that in 5 years it was going to be a much more desirable area, what real estate agents call up and coming? You'd get a higher monthly return on your investment, a higher cap rate, plus a higher percentage of gain when you eventually sell. An up and coming market is like a third world country. It has tons of potential that may or may not be realized in the near future. When evaluating the property, you will have to weigh the likelihood that the up and coming area you've defined will actually arrive. Have a contingency plan if it doesn't. Be aware of plans to change some of the factors that make an area marginal, like a more active school committee working to improve the school rating, new city leadership, or active community groups that are building political strength and could force civic leaders to make positive changes. Some people believe you should follow the artists, as they seem to discover areas that are undervalued and improving before anyone else. The downside: spotting areas that are experiencing growth can yield big rewards. But what if you're wrong? There are towns that have been considered up and coming for 30 years, but have not yet arrived. If the location where you want to buy is currently marginal, it will impact the kinds of tenants that you'll be able to attract. We'll talk later about how to screen tenants so you can feel reasonably comfortable that they're going to pay the rent. The more depressed the area, the harder time you'll have finding tenants with great credit scores and references. Leverage. Another factor that can make transactions risky is leverage. On one end of the spectrum, you could pay cash for a property. Even if you lose a tenant or the value of the property drops, you're still in good shape. You could take out a loan against the building or just use some of the money that you've saved by not paying a mortgage to get you through a rough time. On the other end of the spectrum, if you've borrowed the maximum amount against the property and lost a tenant and market value, you could be in danger of losing the property and any investment that you've made in it over the years, time and timing. It's normal to be in a rush to achieve financial freedom and to tap into that positive cash flow, but beware. The more quickly you want or need to remove money from your property, the more likely that you could be forced into a situation where you have to sell against the market. Buying and selling right are our goals, not buying at the top of the market and selling at the bottom. Many investors say that you make your money on a property when you buy it. Buy right, and you're halfway there. Let it roll. When I was young, there was a guy who used to come by the house sometimes. His name was Kenny. Kenny loved the horses, and he had devised a system, a surefire way to choose the winning trifecta at the horse track. He always told me stories about the success that he'd had and how much he had won. One day after Kenny left, I said to my dad, "Is Kenny rich? He always talks about how much money he has and drives around in a flashy car." My dad laughed. "No, Kenny's not rich. As a matter of fact, he came here today to borrow more money. He's a gambler, always trying to outsmart the system." Some real estate investors are gamblers at heart. When things are going great and they're on a winning streak, they often think they've devised a surefire system that is guaranteed to pick winners and make a profit every time. These are the people who will be filing for bankruptcy in a couple of years. What is the only thing that we know about the real estate market? The real estate market is cyclical. If it's going up, it is going to come down. If you've been riding high for 5 or 6 years, buckle up because the rocky road is ahead. It is possible to get into real estate investing by investing at the bottom of the market, just as it's heading up. When that happens, it seems that you can't go wrong. No matter what you do, you're making money left and right. It's true. You really can't go wrong. You've timed the market perfectly. And even if all you do to a property is pay the taxes, it is going to appreciate. If you fix it up a bit, you'll get all of your investment back and more. The problem is that right now in 2019, most experts agree that we're almost at the top of the current cycle. If you buy right now, you might be able to sneak in a flip or a small development project before the market changes, but you'll be a lot safer if you act as though the market is already heading down and plan accordingly. Worst case scenario, you'll make more than you expect to make on your investment. Now, I'm reading this in 2023, almost 2024. And now, finally, is when the market is just starting to slow down a little bit because COVID changed the real estate market in many areas. People suddenly felt like they wanted to move, people who would not have moved if we didn't have COVID. So you never can tell, but it's never a bad thing. People who planned on the market going down in COVID were in a great situation when COVID actually happened and prices went way up. So never a bad thing to be paying attention to the market cycles. Chapter 2 action items. Visit EYIMbook.com to create a budget. Find creative ways to reduce your expenses. Set a goal to reduce your expenses by at least 20% in the next 3 months. Start to think about your risk tolerance. Chapter 3 What's the real deal? Goals for Chapter 3 Understand the different types of property. Differentiate between residential and commercial. Learn tools to evaluate and compare properties. Types of real property. In general, there are 3 categories of real property: residential, commercial, and other, in air quotes. With all 3 options, you can use a portion of the asset yourself. For example, you can live in one of the units or have your office there. In the case of a second home, you can rent it when you're not using it and get many of the benefits of a pure investment property. It is important to note that the various types of real estate do not share a single market cycle. In general, residential property starts the cycle, commercial comes next, and industrial comes last. This makes sense if you think about it. First, an area of town becomes trendy and residential property values start to rise. Next, funky restaurants come into the area, followed by some retail boutiques and other types of commercial property to support the influx of more affluent residents. Any industrial buildings that may be nearby benefit both from having competition for space and sometimes the option to convert the industrial space into residential and/or commercial uses. If you believe that a residential area is rebounding, that may be the perfect time to scout neglected commercial space. Residential real estate. Normally considered to be any rental property with 4 or fewer units. Residential real estate includes individual condos, single family homes, or multifamily homes that you buy to rent. Included in this category are things like second homes. Multifamily homes can be a great place to start your investing because you can use one unit for yourself. This helps in several ways, including lower interest rates, lower required credit score, and easier property management. Even if you don't live in the building, it's usually easier to start small. Commercial property, along with rental properties of 5 or more units. Commercial property includes property where people don't live, like stores and office buildings, as well as mixed use buildings that might have a combination of retail spaces, offices, and apartments. Commercial property is sometimes overlooked by new investors, but it can be an excellent option if you're planning to manage it yourself and don't want any late night phone calls. It's also a bit easier in some ways dealing with people in their place of work rather than in their home. Other. This category includes industrial real estate, business opportunities, and land. These can be more complex, so if you decide to go one of these routes, consult your trusted advisors to make sure you're considering all facets of the opportunity. Buy land, they ain't making any more of the stuff. Will Rogers. Land ho. Even though the supply of land is limited, there's no limit to the ways that you can use it as long as you comply with local zoning ordinances. You can do anything from building a mountain and starting your own ski area to digging out a lake and selling fishing lessons. Now, you're probably not going to actually build your own mountain, but you can and should think three-dimensionally. When you buy land, you're also buying what's under and over the land, mineral and air rights. These can be sold or leased. You can build skyscrapers or underground bunkers. Are you in an area where there could be mineral deposits? Is there a company that might want to pass wires or pipes underground through your land? What about on the land? Is your property in a very visible location? Would a billboard be easily seen? Would a cell company like to put a tower there? Is it an open space in an area with very little space available? That could make it ideal for farming or gardening or as a parking area. Many city dwellers are willing to pay rent to be part of a community garden. This could also qualify for grants or tax savings. In real estate, we talk about the concept of highest and best use, which looks at the property as it is now and asks what it could be when it grows up. Maybe right now it's a single-story convenience store, but because of the location, changes in the community, and zoning, its highest and best use is as a multi-story mixed-use building. For example, this could have 5 stories with retail on the bottom, offices on the next floor, and then 3 levels of residential. If you bought that property for the price of a convenience store and then maximized its possible usage, you could have huge gains. Once you've explored and discovered the highest and best use, you don't even have to be the one to develop the property. If you design the plans and get the local approvals and permits, you can sell that as a package to a developer who can make it a reality. You may even be able to negotiate staying in as a partner and getting a couple of the completed units. Another way to add value is to subdivide the property, turning one lot into 2 or more buildable lots. You can find homes that are built on 2 lots or where one owner owns multiple lots. Sometimes zoning has changed and you're able to buy one lot that is now large enough to support several home sites. You can then build multiple properties where there was only one before, usually by right. By right means that the current zoning regulations support the idea. If they don't, for example, if you want to put a 2-family in an area zoned for single families, it may still be possible, but you have to go before a board that will evaluate whether your proposal aligns with the goals that they have set for the city or town. With all of these options for real estate investing, not to mention real estate investment trusts called REITs, stocks, bonds, and this great new restaurant that your brother-in-law is starting, how can you make the right decision where to invest your money? Evaluating investment options. Cap rate. The capitalization or cap rate is the net amount of income that the property generates divided by the cost. If a property is selling for $1 million and it generates $100,000 after expenses, the cap rate is calculated as 100,000 divided by 1 million, which is 0.10 or 10%. The higher the cap rate, the more bang for your buck. The cap rate should give you an idea of the risk. Usually higher cap rate properties compared to one with lower cap rate. The higher cap rate would normally have more risk. By comparing similar properties in comparable locations, you would expect that the one with the higher cap rate would have some variable, the age of the property, for example, that makes that purchase riskier. Don't assume that one seller has just priced her property too low. Although that could be true, look for the variable that supports the difference in cap rate. If there isn't one, then you probably found a great deal. If there is, decide whether the higher return is worth the additional risk. You should also consider future potential. When comparing cap rates, it may make sense to do two calculations, one using market rents and one using the rents that are currently being charged. That way you won't miss out on a great deal just because the owner is charging low rents. Be sure that you understand what investment is needed to get market rent out of that building. Sometimes it's just a coat of paint, but sometimes you'll need to update kitchens or baths or add air conditioning. Add that expense to the cost of the property in your cap rate calculation. Appreciation rate. The concept that you make your money when buying a property is especially true when you're hoping to sell fairly soon after buying. If you're planning to hold for 10 years or more, the market cycle shouldn't matter much beyond saving money every month when you make your mortgage payment. Getting an idea of what you can expect for appreciation will help you compare the potential future value of a property. Remember, your goal is to compare two or more potential investments, so your analysis should center on the difference in expected appreciation between your various options. Does the potential of one location exceed the potential of another? Is one type of property, commercial versus residential, for example, expected to fare better in the area? Even if you plan to keep the asset forever, future value is important as your plans may change unexpectedly, or you may want to take out a loan or a line of credit on the property. Your real estate agent can help you understand past trends and how they relate to future appreciation, or you can use online resources like tax assessments to get a rough idea of the market cycle in the area. See EYIMbook.com for more information on this type of research. Overall rate of return, ORR. Understanding the potential future value can help make a property with a lower cap rate more attractive than one with a higher rate. Adding the cap rate to the appreciation rate will give you the overall rate of return for a longer term look at the investment. For example, you're comparing a restaurant in Georgetown with an apartment building on the same street. The cap rates are both 5%, but you see a trend of similar apartment buildings being converted to condos. The appreciation rate on the apartment condos would be 10%, while the restaurant would increase at the area average of 3%, making the apartment building a better investment because you would get 15% for the apartment building versus 8% for the restaurant. So you're getting 5% cap rate, and you're adding that to your other numbers. Leverage. If you're having a lot of fun with this math stuff, you can take it one step further to figure out whether it makes more sense to leverage the property or buy it with cash, or rather, whether it makes sense to buy the property if you can't pay cash. Doing this is easy. Just subtract the interest rate you'd pay from the overall rate of return. If the number is negative, don't do it. You'll lose more on interest than you'll gain in the short term. You'll find spreadsheets with this and other helpful formulas at EYIMbook.com. Get real. I bought my first investment property when I was 23 years old. It was a triple decker in Lawrence, Massachusetts. I knew about as much as your average 23-year-old about being a landlady and investing, and I didn't have a real estate agent, attorney, or mentor representing or advising me. I didn't ask to see leases, applications, or payment histories on the tenants that were in place at the time, and made no provision in the offer for occupancy or condition of the property at closing. By the time I took ownership, the seller had moved the paying tenants to another of his properties, leaving me with 2 vacant units and 1 deadbeat tenant. I had purchased at the top of the market, and the property started losing value almost immediately. Within 2 years, the building was completely vacant, the copper pipes had been stolen, and the property was in foreclosure. Not a very auspicious beginning to a real estate empire. Many people think that it's easy to make money in real estate, but the opportunities to make mistakes are many and varied. So why am I encouraging you to invest in real estate? Because luckily, the reverse is also true, and because there are many ways to make money in every market if you're paying attention. It's what you know and who you know. With so much potential for mistakes when buying your first investment, how can you possibly get it right? Reading about my rocky entry into real estate, it sounds like I made tons of mistakes, but I only made one. I didn't ask for help. I failed to admit that I didn't have a clue about what I was doing, and I just kept walking deeper and deeper into the muck. Luckily, you're much smarter than I was at 23, and you've already proven that you're clever enough to ask for help because you're reading a book on how to do it right. Later, we'll learn how to hire a team of trusted advisors who will bridge the gaps in your knowledge until you become an expert. Chapter 3 Action Items. Go online and find at least one property in each category: residential, commercial, industrial, and land. You'll use the tools at EYIMbook.com to evaluate each for cap rate and appreciation rate. Determine cash flow for each property. Brainstorm ideas for the highest and best use of each property, and then start creating a virtual portfolio of your properties. Chapter 4, but I don't want to be a landlady. Goals for Chapter 4. Understand the job of a landlady. Learn about options for being a landlady. The lady of the land. The objection to real estate investing that I hear most often is, I don't want to be a landlady. It's true, not everyone is cut out for the job, and not everyone can handle all aspects with ease. But don't let this hold you back. You can outsource some or all of the responsibility to others, and there are ways, which we'll talk about soon, to avoid ever having to be involved in the leasing side of real estate investing. With few exceptions, though, owning and managing the property yourself without paid help is the most lucrative way to invest in real estate. As soon as you add people, you have to share the pot. So before you completely rule out the idea, let's delve a bit more deeply and see what it really means to be a lady of the land. Residential. I've always been squeamish about calling people and asking for rent, but I know people who truly enjoy it. My favorite type of tenant is one who I only have to talk to when it's time to renew leases. But a lot of my investor friends have very close relationships with their tenants, and they look forward to picking up the rent in person each month. I am happiest when my tenants deposit their rent directly into my account. Bills get paid automatically, and life is easy. But many people love the meditative process of collecting checks, doing paperwork, etc. When Anne Marie bought her three-family, the upstairs tenants had lived in the house for 21 years. They seemed nice, but spoke almost no English, and their rent was way below the market rate for the area. The downstairs tenant was a single mom who shouted a lot at her tall, scary-looking adult son and two younger kids, and had a yappy dog. I imagined myself managing these two tenants, and it gave me goosebumps. We talked about it before the purchase, and Anne Marie, who stands all of 5 feet tall, said it didn't bother her and that she was excited to take on the challenge. As a property owner, the most important job you have is selecting good tenants. Many of the residential landladies I've met have owned property for many years. They say that the key to finding tenants with a, they say that the key is finding tenants with a good credit score. Maintaining a good credit score is not easy, and it's something that you usually have to do intentionally. If your tenants are making sure their credit score stays high, they are not going to jeopardize it by paying late. One landlady told me if her tenants had a score of 750 or above, they will pay their rent a week early. 700 to 750, they pay on time. And under 700, they'll be late and have excuses at least a few times every year. Of course, good scorers can run into financial problems, and people with low scores can improve. But when you're looking for a fair, objective way to evaluate people, credit score is one option. As a new rental agent, I once worked with a family relocating to Boston from Florida. The Florida real estate market had gone bust, and they had lost their home. Their credit score was terrible, and I felt really bad for them. It wasn't easy, but I was able to find a landlord who was sympathetic to their situation and who was willing to offer them a place to rent despite their low credit score. After signing the leases, the wife said to me, "What's the grace period?" "Excuse me? What's the latest date that we can pay the rent without getting a penalty?" Yes, that's right. These people hadn't just been victims of the terrible real estate market in Florida. They were also already planning to pay their rent as late as possible on their new place. Moral: when you get a sad sack applying to your apartment, don't let yourself be taken in by their stories. It's always someone else's fault that their life is miserable. If you rent to them, it will become your fault and your problem when you have to evict them. There are a lot of rules around renting to people to maintain fairness and avoid discrimination. The federal government and your state government have designated certain groups as being potential victims of discrimination, called protected classes. Massachusetts is among the states with the most protected classes, including not only the usual federal categories like race, color, religion, etc., but also things like sexual orientation and family status. Regardless of what the protected classes are in your state, it's best to adopt a system right away that will treat all applicants the same. For example, if you decide that you are going to require a minimum credit score, every applicant must meet that minimum or have something comparable. For example, a foreign student without a social security number would have a J-1 visa that outlines his or her financial resources. The first time you decide to allow someone to rent from you with an inferior credit score, you invite a discrimination lawsuit. You should also be careful what you say to applicants. Because national origin is a federally protected category, for example, just asking someone where they're from could be considered discriminatory. When someone is interested in your apartment, hand them an application, the same one that everyone else fills out, and restrict your conversation to the facts of the apartment. Normally, you can find courses given by the local real estate board, real estate agents, or property management companies that can help you learn to navigate these tricky waters. Commercial. For commercial or industrial leasing, the business is at least as important as the tenant. No matter how great the tenant, if the business fails, the person is no longer going to need the space and likely won't be able to keep paying the rent. Part of your job will be to research the business that the person has or wants to start. Ask to see business plans for new businesses and profit and loss statements for existing businesses. It's best if you can find someone who's been in business for a while and has outgrown her current space or needs more parking, etc. There are a lot of other considerations for commercial leasing like tenant mix, compatible parking use, etc. EYIMbook.com has lots of helpful info for commercial landladies. DIY, do it yourself. There are pros and cons to doing things yourself at the beginning. It's important to learn as much as possible so that if you do outsource later, you know what you're asking of people and ultimately how you'd like things handled. On the other hand, if you're a slow learner, it can have a dramatic impact on your ability to make a profit. You may be able to find a property manager who's willing to teach you the ropes, but most will be too busy and won't relish instructing themselves out of a job. If you can, plan to do everything yourself for at least the first year. Look for classes you can take to learn good landlady skills, local tenant law, and how to do some of the simpler home maintenance tasks. You can do this. Jane is a millionaire real estate investor from Canada who I met recently at a book writing seminar. She started investing when her husband left her with 4 children, the youngest of whom was only 3 days old. When Jane buys a new building, she introduces herself to tenants as the property manager. If they ask for something, she tells them that she'll talk to the owner about it. This gives her a chance to think about it and also gives her a layer of insulation between herself and the tenants. When the answer to a request is no, it's the owner, not Jane, who's the meanie. DSY, do some yourself. Be honest with yourself about the aspects of property management that you'd like to do or don't mind doing and what really makes you uncomfortable. Then you can find the right person or company to take up the slack. Here's a chart that lists the types of responsibilities that you may have as a property manager and what type of person you could hire to do that aspect of the job. Finding good tenants, a real estate agent that specializes in rentals. Managing paperwork, an accountant or bookkeeper. Handling maintenance issues, a tradesperson or property manager. Collecting rents, accountant, bookkeeper, or property manager. DNY, do none yourself. The ultimate hands-off is hiring a property manager to do everything. You can be on a beach somewhere relaxing. The property manager will take care of everything, send you a monthly statement, and deposit the money into your account. You never even have to visit the property. Be careful, though. The more hands-off you want to be, the more trust you must have in your property manager. There's a lot of opportunity to take advantage of absentee owners, high fees, unnecessary repairs, accepting bad tenants, etc. Property managers also have different ways of charging, some with a percentage of rents collected and some with a flat fee. Your best bet is to get a referral from another property owner or to read a lot of online reviews. One way to decide if it's time to hire a property manager is when you have several properties in your portfolio and the time to manage them is keeping you from other money generating activities. By the time this happens, you'll be in an excellent position to hire the right person to fill your shoes. Partnerships. As we've discussed, one way to get the tenant that you need is to find partners with complementary skills. It's important that you know and are upfront about your strengths and weaknesses so that you're able to partner with or outsource the skills that you lack. Partnerships have their own set of challenges, and you'll need documents that concretely spell out each person's responsibility and how he or she will be compensated. White glove investing. The most hands-off type of real estate investing involves giving your money to a person or entity that does everything. I call it white glove investing because you never have to get your hands dirty. It usually means that you will be the money person and someone else will supply the labor. This includes being the financial partner for a handy person who will do all the work for a flip, or the shareholder or of a REIT or another type of real estate holding company or a turnkey property. If you're investing with money from your 401k, you have to use this type of arrangement. What is a REIT? REIT stands for Real Estate Investment Trust. You can almost think of it as a mutual fund for real estate. REITs usually work like this. A large investment company buys lots of real estate, big projects like the land rented by your local Home Depot, a shopping mall, office, skyscraper, etc. Most of these will be long-term tenants with reliable lease payments, so the REIT can offer a fairly consistent monthly dividend payment. My REIT pays a pretty consistent 6% dividend, which is excellent considering CDs are paying less than 1% right now. So this was in 2019. But REITs usually carry a high management fee. Be careful that the one you choose has a long history of reliably paying dividends and that the management fees will not erode your profits. Turnkey properties. If you're investing with 401k money, or what we call a self-directed IRA, or if you simply want a hands-off approach to investing, consider turnkey properties. In this type of investment, a third party will manage the property and any renovations necessary. The company will normally be paid a percentage of the rents collected. The property will likely be located in an area with inexpensive homes, often quite far from where you live. You may never meet the tenants or see the property after that initial purchase. You rely on the property management firm to take care of everything. You just wait for the money to be transferred to your account. Hard money lending. A fun way to get started in real estate investing is to finance a flip for an experienced flipper or a development for an experienced developer. Most cities have investor clubs. Attending these meetings can often put you in touch with people looking to partner or borrow money from someone to finance their flip or their project. You'll want to study their paperwork and proposal very carefully, and if possible, visit the property yourself before committing. But these should offer a high interest rate as well as some points to you. Each point is 1% of the mortgage amount. Please don't get involved in this type of situation unless you have both a real estate attorney familiar with this type of scenario and a builder or contractor who can review the proposal and give you confirmation that the person knows what he or she is doing. Hard money loans are usually between 5 and 15% higher than the person would pay for a conventional mortgage. Clearly, this type of financing is the last resort for builders and people doing flips. If a bank won't finance the project and none of the person's friends or family are interested, you should be very careful and make sure you understand the risks before agreeing. The worst case scenario should be that you own the property or are getting some other guaranteed concession if the project doesn't go as planned. There's more information on all these types of investing on the website eyimbook.com. Chapter 4, Action Items. Honestly evaluate your strengths and weaknesses. Decide whether to hire someone, partner with someone, or learn the skills yourself to fill in the gaps. Regardless of what you decide, learn the skills. Chapter 5, I want to get my hands in the dirt. Goals for Chapter 5. Determine your investment style. Understand the various options. Understand how flips work. What's your pleasure? There are 3 components needed for every transaction: money, time, and skills. You may have all 3 components, but more likely you'll be partnering or hiring for the pieces that you can't or don't choose to do yourself. Money. Project funding, including initial purchase and improvements or repairs, is pretty easy to understand. As we'll discuss in Chapter 7, the money could come from a partner who will share in the profits or from an entity who is contracted with a specific payment schedule, regardless of the building profit. Time. There are two time elements in investing: time to do things like DIY fixing or property management, and elapsed time between buying and selling or capitalizing on the investment. Skills. This is a broad category into which I lump all of the professionals who you will need to make the project succeed, from the plumber to the accountant. You may be able to do much of the renovating yourself and maximizing your profit, but on larger projects, there will be some skills that you simply don't possess. This is not the area where you should fake it till you make it. When in doubt, spend the money to hire the attorney, accountant, architect, plumber, etc. This person can mean the difference between success and failure. I've had meetings with my accountant that have saved me thousands of dollars. A good attorney could potentially save you much more, and one little plumbing mistake can make a big mess. Buy and hold. Hold it right there. Many real estate investors are buyers only. They're most comfortable buying a property, making some improvements, and renting it out to high quality tenants. We call them buy and hold investors. For the most part, they don't have to worry about where they are in the cycle when they purchase. They're only concerned with cash flow. As long as the building generates more income than outflow, they're going to sit and watch the profits roll in. Jane, who we met in Chapter 4, had seen a TV show where the host purchased homes and created additional living space in the basement. She thought that sounded good, so she purchased a single-family home, added a basement suite, and started herself on the road to financial freedom. That one tenant paid the full mortgage on the house, allowing Jane to invest in more properties. She told me that she always buys with the intention of adding additional living space. Often it's a basement suite, but she's also subdivided, turning 2 units into 4, for example. Jane prefers to buy the space unfinished, as she loves designing the new unit herself. She also manages the construction projects herself, dealing directly with the contractor, and acts as property manager. Jane is a buy and hold investor. She almost always buys with the intention of holding on to the property. If you're going to buy and hold, you have time on your side. You can afford to do projects slowly, reinvesting profits. You can renovate to suit a long-term tenant and replace cheaper materials with more durable stock to save money in the long run. As long as you have cash reserves and money coming in, keeping on top of repairs and improvements should make your life easy and keep your tenants happy. You're going to flip over this. I've used the term flip several times in the book. If you're not familiar with the term, it refers to the practice of buying and selling a property quickly, sometimes immediately after taking legal ownership. For this to work, you usually have to do something to add value, like fixing it up. But as we've said before, you make your money when you buy the home. If you buy right, you can sometimes make a profit right away. This works especially well in an upward market because the cycle is working with you. Just like with stocks, if you own a piece of real estate for 12 months or less, you'll be paying short-term capital gains tax. For a flip to be profitable, you have to add enough value to pay the tax, the cost of repairs, and any other holding costs that you'll incur, and still make a profit. For a flip to be profitable, you have to add enough value to pay the tax, the cost of repairs, and any other holding costs that you'll incur, and still make a profit. This is much easier when the market is on your side, worth the paper it's written on. Have you ever heard the term selling paper? This can be the easiest way to make money in real estate, but also the most difficult. It's easy because you make money without a lot of effort, and difficult because it has a lot of moving parts that must harmonize perfectly. Selling paper happens between the time that you put a property under agreement and the time you actually take ownership. Let's say that during your neighborhood visits, you meet Sandra's seller, who's got a new job and has to sell her home ASAP because she's being transferred to the London office. You make a deal with Sandra that is fair to you both and put the property under agreement. Because Sandra needs the quick closing, no contingency purchase that you can provide, the offer is less than the current market value of the home. Now you happen to be talking to your friend Betty Buyer and find out she and her husband are looking to buy a home in that very area. You show the house that you have under agreement to the buyers, and they're very interested. You agree to sell the house to the buyers at a fair market value on the same day that you've already scheduled to buy the house from Sandra at under market value. The minute you own the house, literally the same minute, you sell the house to the buyers, effectively touching the deed only long enough to pass it from Sandra's seller to Betty Buyer, pocketing the difference between the buying and selling price. It's best if everyone involved knows that this is going to happen. You've been fair to both parties. Everyone has what they wanted, but people can still feel cheated if they find out about this after the fact or at the closing. As your mom probably told you, honesty is the best policy. A slower flip In most cases, you won't be able to sell the property immediately. It's often necessary to add some value to the property before selling it at a profit. Tom Trong bought his first house in 1994 using a loan from his 401k. At the time, he knew nothing about real estate and even less about home renovation. But through the help of friends and family and a lot of determination, he managed to fix up that house and sell it after living there for 2 years. When the profit on the house was more than his annual salary, it started Tom's wheels turning. Tom told me that his mother got him interested in real estate investing when he was very young. Tom's family was renting a home when they first moved to the Boston area. His mother didn't like the idea of renting, so she went door to door to friends, neighbors, and relatives, borrowing $500 here, $50 here, $100 there, until she had enough money for a down payment on a 3-family home. Tom feels that entrepreneurial spirit that his mother displayed is necessary for anyone who wants to be a successful real estate investor, along with the confidence to act. He credits being smart about money and saving as much as possible before his first purchase as other essential ingredients to success. More of Tom's tips. Buying and living in the house you're fixing is the easiest way to build wealth. Buy as soon as possible. The sooner you start, the sooner you'll arrive. Start with a multifamily home if at all possible. If you're flipping a home, plan to hold it for 6 months or less. Do your homework. If you change your course halfway there, you'll lose time and money. Planning to sell. If you're hoping to sell soon, 2 years or less, try to put your renovation money where it will have the most impact. Remember that you add value to investment properties by increasing cash flow. Updating an older kitchen and bath can help you get more rent, but just changing things to suit your taste or current styles rarely pays dividends. Look for ways to increase curb appeal and first impressions. In office buildings, common areas can be more important to tenants than their own spaces, especially if there are facilities in the common area like conference rooms for meeting clients. Spend time visiting similar properties until you get an idea of the condition and features of property in the price range at which you hope to sell. Whether you choose to sell quickly or hold, don't get emotionally involved with these properties. They are tools. Keep them sharp, but don't shave off all of your profit. Especially for a quicker sale, it's vital that you know which direction the market is heading. It's easy to invest money to fix up a property only to lose it because the market is moving against you. If you plan to sell soon, read Chapter 5 carefully to learn how to identify market conditions so you don't get caught out. What's my style? The website, EYIMbook.com, has a questionnaire that will help you determine your investing style. You need to know if you're a Debbie Doer or a Danielle Delegator, or somewhere in between. It will also help you decide whether you're going to be a buy and sell investor or a buy and hold investor. You may decide to do both depending on what makes the most sense for that particular property. That's okay, but remember the different philosophies for investing in repairs and upgrades. Could you do what Tom did and borrow against your 401k? How about what Tom's mother did and gather loans from friends and family? Could you emulate Jane and double the living space in your home? Absolutely. Where there's a will, there's always a way. Make your plan and watch the universe bring itself into alignment. Chapter 5, Action Items. Determine your investment style or explore options. Choose one method and start researching. Chapter 6, I get up and nothing gets me down. Goals for Chapter 6. Understand the nature of market cycles. Have tools to identify where we are in the cycle. If you're like most people, you know someone who has lost his or her shirt in real estate. They were doing great, buying, selling, flipping, developing, making millions. And then all of a sudden, the bottom fell out of the market and they lost everything. Maybe your own house has lost value, so you know firsthand about the fickle market. The real estate market is cyclical. If it's going up, it's eventually going to come down. Whoever wishes to foresee the future must consult the past. Niccolo Machiavelli. Before I learned about real estate cycles, the idea of making money through real estate investing seemed like a special gift that some had and others didn't. When I tried my own hand at investing for the first time, the results were disastrous. The second and third properties purchased years later went really well. So I thought I had magically transformed during the interim. I became emboldened and purchased 2 more properties at what turned out to be close to the top of the market, and was amazed when their value dropped after I fixed them up. Unlike my original belief, the ability to make money investing in real estate is not an innate talent that one is either born with or not. Anyone can learn to spot trends and to act in the most beneficial way for that moment in time. Furthermore, if you take the position of many investors and plan to hold your property for a number of years, you're virtually guaranteed to make a profit. Similarly, if you plan to buy, fix, and sell within a few months, the market cycle shouldn't change significantly during that time. Like with stocks, it's the untimely selling of real estate that creates actual loss. If the property loses value on paper, but you're still making a profit by renting it, is that really a problem? Available inventory. As we've learned, the price of real estate is driven by supply and demand. As such, understanding how much inventory is available is the key to discovering whether you're in an up or a down cycle, a buyer or a seller's market. Thanks to the internet, getting this information is easier than ever. The formula is the number of homes available divided by the number of homes sold in the past 30 days equals months of inventory. So, for example, I want to buy a home in Nashville, Tennessee. I go to a real estate website like Zillow and type in Nashville, TN, click for sale, and select houses in the home type dropdown. I get 782 results. I then unclick for sale, the for sale button, and I click recently sold. Under more, I select sold in the last 30 days. And Zillow returns 797 matches. I divide the 782 properties that are on the market by the 797 properties that have sold in the last 30 days, and I get with 0.98. That means there is less than 1 month's worth of available inventory. In other words, if no one new put their house on the market in Nashville, at the rate of 797 sold per month, they'd run out of inventory. There'd be no more houses to buy in less than 1 month. Nashville is a big city, though, and not all areas in what Zillow categorizes as Nashville are necessarily in the same place in the cycle or equally desirable. When you find a neighborhood of interest, do a more detailed search or ask your real estate agent to give you values on comparable properties recently sold in the area, along with the data to get a view of the market cycle. Remember, our goal is to buy smart. In general, if there are 6 months or less of inventory, it's considered a seller's market. Usually 6 to 9 months of inventory is considered neutral, and more than 9 months is considered a buyer's market. Even in a neutral market, though, you can find people who cannot wait to sell their homes and would be willing to take a lower price. Cycles. We see that Nashville is a strong seller's market, but how is that helpful? We don't have anything to sell in Nashville. We're looking to buy. Should we do it, or is the market tapped out? The quick answer is that there is always a deal to be had if you have the stamina to look for it. But what is the right deal for that moment in time? To answer that question, we have to know where we are in the cycle. With less than 1 month of inventory, we're most likely on an upward trajectory. But how near are we to the peak? Naturally, no one can predict that answer with 100% accuracy, but there are some data that we can use to make a guess. Cycles in real estate are usually pretty easy to see in retrospect. At the bottom of the curve, there are more homes than buyers, and the prices are low. Builders stop building because the selling price won't cover their cost to build. Something happens to make people start buying. Maybe interest rates go down, or the government offers an incentive to first-time buyers, or you just run out of inventory. However it happens, lots of new buyers enter the market. The available inventory starts selling faster than it can be replaced. Because prices are still kind of low, new houses are slower to come on the market. Usually at this stage, you see builders renovating older homes, but not much new construction. The scarcity of inventory drives up the price of the remaining homes. Now that the prices are higher, builders and developers can afford to start new projects, but the development cycle takes time. There are lots of steps in that process. In the meantime, prices keep going up and up as buyers outbid each other for the few available homes. Little by little, new construction starts to enter the market. The media finally catches on and lets everyone know that it's a good time to sell. People who had been waiting for the peak decide to sell their homes. Eventually, things start to level off. There's more inventory and buyers can be more selective. They often have the option of new construction, making older homes less valuable. More new construction enters the market as larger projects are completed. A lot of the people who had wanted to buy have now found a place. There's less demand and more supply. People who really need to sell have to lower their prices. Because fewer homes are selling, the inventory backs up. It takes longer to sell a home, and there are more months of inventory. At the worst times in early 2000, some markets had 3 or more years of inventory. So where the heck are we? What can we do to discover where we are in the market? The first thing to do is drive around the neighborhood. Do you see a lot of new construction? Are buildings being torn down to make way for larger buildings? Are neighborhoods that were considered not that great suddenly becoming trendy? These are all signs that we're approaching the top of the market. Rentals. One early predictor of the top is the rental market. Think about what happens in a hot market. Investors like us get excited. We buy whatever we can afford, often outbidding those looking to live in the home themselves. Gradually, a glut develops as properties that were owner occupied become rental properties. At the same time, some people who would have rented are now becoming homeowners. Because of this phenomenon, the multifamily market often peaks before the single family market. You would research this in the same way that you research the home market. Go to any real estate search website and see how many apartment buildings are on the market in your target city. Now, see how many have sold in the past 30 days. In our Nashville example, there are just over 3 months of inventory for apartment buildings and multifamily homes. This is still a seller's market, but it is slowing compared to the single family. From this data, I would guess that Nashville home prices will continue going up slightly for at least another 1 to 2 years before leveling off and heading down. It's okay to buy in Nashville with the intent of selling in the next 2 years. If you plan to buy and hold, research the available rentals in your target area to see where you are in the rental cycle. You may be able to start new construction in Nashville, but by the time everything is approved by the city, you run the risk of finishing the building just as the market is heading down. It's a gamble. You'd want to look carefully at your goals and explore the worst case scenario before heading down that road. Trends. Here we've discussed the single family and multifamily market trends, which you can test further by talking to property managers, real estate agents who specialize in rentals, and owners of rental property. Are they having trouble renting? Are rents going up, down, or staying flat? When they start going down, that's when you want to sell if it has been your intention. As of late 2018, Boston, Massachusetts has very little inventory for buyers, but there are lots of properties for rent. In Massachusetts, legislation has made it attractive for developers to build rental apartment buildings instead of homes to sell. Tenants can choose to live in a brand new condo quality building, making it tough for smaller investors with older apartments to compete. If you determine that it's not the best time to buy and hold residential inventory in your target area, you could look into commercial or industrial property. If you can determine where the market is heading, you can time your investments more wisely. Legislative changes. One factor to watch is legislation. Previous administrations have passed laws to encourage home ownership. Things like tax rebates for first-time buyers and low or no down payments, looser credit, etc., have all been tried and all have affected the real estate market dramatically. When this book was written, Donald Trump was in office. It was not currently known whether he would be friendly to real estate investors or not. His administration talks about eliminating some tax laws that are relied upon heavily by many investors. Keeping an eye on proposed legislation can help you avoid being unpleasantly surprised by a quicker than expected drop in the market. There are a lot of different market factors that could impact the Nashville predictions that we made earlier. There are no sure things in any type of investment. All we can do is study the past and do our homework on the present. Neighborhood watch. Because every neighborhood is a little different, you need to be familiar with the area where you're thinking of investing. Drive around and note what you see. How does the look and feel of the neighborhood compare to the last time you drove or walked through? Are people planting gardens? Are the homes well tended? Do you see peeling paint or weedy yards? What type of cars are parked on the street? Are people out and about, walking around and interacting with each other? Or are the streets empty and houses locked up tight? Do you see any new developments or new construction? Keep note of the different neighborhoods that you visit. You're looking for areas where people care about their homes, where life is good and people are happy. Those tend to be areas where the economy is smiling on the neighborhood. And if you're not sure, get out and speak to the people you see. Ask them if they think the neighborhood is safe, if it's going up or down. If you're lucky enough to find a long term resident, you may be able to get some great insight into the unique market in that area. Hit the streets. When you have a few areas in mind, it's time to hit the streets. Talk to residents, local realtors, city councilors, and the police. Ask them if your instincts about the neighborhood seem accurate. Listen to rumors and learn about proposed development that could help or hurt the area. Most cities and towns televise planning meetings on the local cable channel. Listen in and find out what changes are underway. Better yet, get involved. Volunteer to be on a committee or get yourself elected to the school board or city council. You'll not only have firsthand knowledge of changes, you could be the agent of change, proposing legislation that will increase home values. Schools. As we mentioned before, the quality of the school system has a tremendous impact on home prices. The school system in Brookline, Massachusetts has a very high rating. That is one factor that has caused its housing prices to rise out of sight. People move to Brookline from all over the world to get their kids into the school system. Where Brookline borders Boston, a house on the Brookline side of the line can be worth 40% more than an identical property on the Boston side. Look for towns that had schools with a low rating that are putting effort into improving the quality of education. If you can buy into an area that will appreciate because of the desirability of a new school system, you can often realize large gains. Making money in an upward market. In an upward market, even if you don't touch the house, it will usually appreciate. One strategy is just to buy and hold, making only inexpensive cosmetic improvements. This works especially well when you buy at the bottom of the market, just as it starts going up. At that point, your gain is maximized. The upward cycle can last years. During that time, you'll probably have the property rented, so there will be no cost to you and probably at least some profit. If you hold it for more than 12 months, your income tax burden should also be lower when you do sell. Making money in a downward market. Just as the market forces are your ally in an upward market, they are your enemy when the market is trending downward. So, what can you do to make money in real estate when the market's going down? If you already have a piece of property with a positive cash flow, hang on to it. Keep it in good repair to attract the best quality tenants and just wait for the market to improve. If you're just entering the real estate market, it's still possible to do so successfully. If you want to buy and hold, try to put higher down payments or pay cash. That way, if you do need to sell or refinance unexpectedly, you won't have negative equity. That also minimizes your monthly debt service, allowing for positive cash flow. Unlike an upward market where a new kitchen and bath are enough to ensure a profit, you have to be a bit more creative if you want to do a flip in a down market. What can you do to make money when the price of homes is falling? Look for opportunities to add to the living area, like a house where a large attic will allow you to put in a dormer and add a second floor, or add a basement suite, as Jane did. In a down market, you can also make a profit by breaking up a space. For example, taking a large house and turning it into a two-family or two condos. This should allow you to rent or sell the property for more money. Keep in mind that you will still have the same tax burden whether the market is going up or down. So be sure to factor taxes into your budget before deciding whether or not a property is a good investment. Another strategy for a failing market can be a change of use. Sometimes a residential property can be converted for commercial use, or you can buy land that can be put to work. In general, it's always possible to make money, but in a down market, you have to be more creative and more careful. If you're buying a property to add some value, sell at a profit and move on, time is of the essence. If it takes too long for you to add value, the falling market may erode your profit margin. Remember, Tom said he doesn't buy a property to flip unless he believes he can have it fixed up and sold within 6 months. If your flip takes longer, the downward market could steal your profits. Location, location, and location. You've probably heard people say that the three most important things about real estate are location, location, location. In my experience, this is absolutely accurate. I bought a 3-bedroom home in New Hampshire for the same price that a client of mine paid for a garage parking spot in downtown Boston. There are pros and cons to this. If I hold the New Hampshire property, the monthly rent is much higher than what I could get for the Boston parking spot. When it comes time to sell, however, the New Hampshire house will be much more subject to market conditions. There's plenty of available land in this area for people to build new homes, but not so in Boston, where garage parking will probably always be at a premium. Also, the parking space doesn't require maintenance, utilities, etc. This is why we did goals early on. If I just want a sure place to park my money, maybe a garage space is the better choice for me. Demographics. Another factor to consider is demographics. Often, less expensive areas have challenges that more expensive areas don't have. I'm lucky that the New Hampshire property is in an area frequented by tourists because there is a wide economic gap in the area among full-time residents. Basically, you're either working for the ski lift or you own the mountain. Because my property is in the middle class range, if I weren't able to do short-term rentals to vacationers, I may have trouble finding a full-time tenant who could pay my target rent amount. Make sure that the area will support the plans you have for the property. It's possible to go into an area and sink a lot of money into expensive fixtures, granite countertops, and designer touches, only to find that you had already topped out the amount of rent the area would support. Check the available market inventory, visit apartments for rent in your area, and talk to other landlords, rental agents, and property managers to validate your strategy. Trends. Have you ever visited a neighborhood that you frequented as a child, only to find it had developed dramatically? The vacant lots were replaced by high rises, and the house of pizza was now a trendy bistro, or that things had gone in the opposite direction. If you knew then what you know now, you may have been in a position to take some action. Now that you're older and wiser, you can try to spot these trends in time to capitalize on them. Pay attention to changes. View every home through your investor spyglass. You will start to spot trends and find some great opportunities. Many investors won't buy where there's a lot of graffiti, trash, or vehicles in yards or on streets waiting to be repaired, weedy yards, and several houses in need of painting or maintenance. In general, you want to see evidence that the community cares about the area and you want your tenants to feel comfortable walking around after dark. Getting information. In addition to your instincts and the neighbors, you can get demographics and trends from federal census data, local tax assessments, and the local newspapers. Search engines are great resources, as are community social media pages and local area websites. Visit the area at night and see if there's anything that would make a tenant feel unsafe. Chapter 6 Action Items. Choose a couple of areas near enough for you to visit several times within a few weeks. Use the tools above to figure out where we are in the market cycle. Speak to a couple of real estate agents who work in those areas and ask for their ideas on the current market cycle. Make sure you understand why they believe as they do. Figure out who is right. Keep asking questions and gathering data until you are convinced you have a good idea of the position of each area in the market cycle. Chapter 7, Money, Money. Who's got the money? Goals for Chapter 7. Understand the options for funding your first purchase. Understand how your first purchase should differ from later purchases. Evaluate the pros and cons of various funding options. Understand leverage, what it means, and when it's useful. Step 1, find the money. Some of the get-rich-quick real estate courses will tell you not to worry about money. Find the deals and the money will follow. I think that's a great way to lose out on some great deals and potentially lose your deposit. You have to know how much you can afford and then go looking for deals in that price range. Later, when you've made some connections and have some experience, then you can forget about the money. It's fun to talk about investing in real estate, but when we start thinking about coming up with large sums of money, it can get scary. To pay for your first property, there are only 3 options. You can use your money, other people's money, or OPM, or a combination. You may be saying, why even talk about using my money? Why shouldn't we always use OPM? The answer to that question will vary for each of us. Often, OPM comes with strings attached. The person, bank, or private lender who's giving us money usually wants some level of control over what happens with the project. They may want a share of the profit. There may be regulatory requirements or mandatory insurance. OPM is normally more expensive than funding a project yourself. When you explore the various options, weigh them carefully. Don't be so enamored with the idea of OPM that you're blind to its drawbacks. Finding hidden assets. Whenever you're called on to make up your mind and you're hampered by not having any, Pete Hine, Crooks. It's all well and good to talk about the benefits of using your own money for real estate investing. But what if you don't happen to have hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in your savings account? Let's see if we can find some hidden assets. Retirement savings. If you participate in any type of employee-sponsored retirement savings plan, there's a good chance you can borrow against the plan to purchase real estate. Some retirement plans and 401ks allow you to hold real estate as an investment, like a turnkey property, with certain restrictions. Leverage your equity. If you have a lot of equity in your own home, you may consider taking out a second mortgage or home equity line of credit called a HELOC. When embarking on a career in real estate, it's a good idea to establish a HELOC anyway, so you can have immediate access to funds should an emergency arise. It costs nothing unless you need it, so why not do the paperwork now and be prepared? Credit cards. When the market is on the rise, you can use credit cards to finance closing costs and may even be able to take out a cash advance for the down payment. Many investors finance renovations with a 0% interest rate card, gives them a year to pay it off before the interest kicks in. Be careful with this approach. You need to be sure you have a plan to pay off the card before the promotional zero interest period is over. Most banks will not allow you to use credit cards for a down payment, so talk to your lender before choosing this option. Get out while the getting is good. If you have a stock or bond portfolio, see if it's a good time to sell a set of assets that can be used for real estate investing. Done right, real estate should return a higher percentage of gain than stocks or bonds when you factor in the tax advantages. OPM. Now we come to a topic that is near and dear to my heart. OPM, or other people's money, is a great way to increase your buying power. When thinking of where to find OPM, start close to home. Parents, adult children, friends, and relatives are great sources of investment capital. Sure, you can talk to big-time investors and try to get them interested in your project, but save that for later when you understand the process better and can answer their questions. For now, start small and put together a few people who have some cash that needs a place to grow, or take Mrs. Strong's approach of crowdfunding. When I bought my first Airbnb property, I put together $90,000 with two friends, and we were able to put in a strong cash offer with a quick closing date and secure a great deal on a lovely fixer-upper chalet in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. I borrowed the money from them at 5% interest, about 1.5% over the then current rate. After a year, I had done some renovations and went for a conventional loan. I was able to finance $118,000, enough to pay back my friends with interest, pay myself back, and take out some additional cash for another project. Visit EYIMbook.com for ideas on structuring this type of arrangement. Cash or leverage. Once you put some money together, you have a decision to make: buy with cash or leverage. Leverage means, like with a lever, that you're using something small to move something big. Two friends, Claire and Debbie, are getting into real estate investing. Claire is conservative and Debbie is daring. Both have $100,000 to invest. Claire finds a nice house for $100,000. She rents it out for $1,400 a month. She pays the taxes and insurance and pockets the rest, about $1,100 a month. Debbie found 5 properties that she liked. She put 20% down on 5 $100,000 properties. Each property now has a mortgage of $80,000. Between mortgages, taxes, and insurance, she's putting about $700 per month into her pocket for each unit, or $35,000. So why is this even a decision? Isn't it obvious that Claire is leaving a lot of money on the table by being so conservative? Leveraging may sound like a no-brainer, but there are pros and cons to each strategy. Look what happens to Debbie if the market goes down just 10%. Now her properties are each worth $90,000, and she's just lost 50% of her investment. She's lost $10,000 on each property times 5 properties. If she had to sell now, half of her money is gone. What do you think happens when the market goes down 20%? Her houses would be worth $80,000 each, which is exactly how much she owes the bank. Her entire $100,000 investment is lost. As long as the properties stay rented, she's okay. She can pay her bills and still make a profit. But if the rental market sags or she needs a major repair, it won't be long before she's putting properties up for sale or losing them to foreclosure. Claire put 100% of her money into one property. If the market goes down 20%, she's only lost $20,000. Not ideal, but if she needed some money, she could take out a loan against the property. She wouldn't be forced to sell during a down market, even if the house was temporarily vacant. Using too much leverage is how people lose everything when the market turns. On the other hand, if the market is going up, leverage is great. If the market gains 10%, Debbie would gain 50% on her investment. If she sold, she'd make $50,000 on a $100,000 investment. Since Claire only bought one property, she would only gain $10,000. Use what we learned in Chapter 6. Doing that research will help to determine where we are in the cycle and help you decide whether to use cash or leverage. The no cash option. In most financing scenarios, you'll need to invest at least some of your money. In the no cash option, it's 100% OPM. In this scenario, you put no money down, either by financing 100% or by selling paper in a flip. There are various ways to finance 100% of your chosen property, but be aware. By maxing out your financing, you're leaving yourself no cushion, no margin of error. If the market is at the bottom, but you're starting to see signs that it's on the rise, or if you can be reasonably sure that the market is on the upswing, full financing is worth exploring. Usually, to get 100% financing, you'll need a combination of sources, although sometimes the seller is willing to fund your purchase for a higher than average interest rate. Most banks and mortgage companies are willing to mortgage 80% of the appraised value of a property. If you've got a great deal and the appraisal comes in at a higher price than what you're paying, you can work with the bank to finance the full 80%. For example, you've got a house under contract for $250,000, but the appraisal comes in at $315,000. At an 80% loan to value, your loan amount would be $252,000, more than enough to pay 100% for the house. It's rare to find a property that has been so heavily discounted, but it's not impossible. If the appraisal is higher than the sale price, that should reduce or eliminate the amount that you'll have to bring to the closing. The difference between your loan amount and the purchase price can come from a number of places. Some lending institutions are willing to give you a second loan for the remaining balance. In this case, you'd have two loans, one for 80% and one, probably at a higher interest rate, for 20%. Your options for the 20% loan are the same as above: friends and family, investors, the seller, and smaller local banks and credit unions who will hold the loan in-house. This is called a portfolio loan. 'Tis the season. When using conventional financing for all or part of your purchase, you'll be subject to specific rules surrounding the source of the down payment. Lending institutions require that you explain the source of any money deposited into your account in the last 2 or 3 months. If you're using some of that money for your down payment, there are rules about that. For example, only family members can give you a gift. If it's not a gift but a loan, that has to be factored into your debt to income ratio. To avoid these kinds of questions, the money should be seasoned, which means sitting in your account for at least 2 monthly statement cycles. Get paid to buy. It can be possible to get some cash back at the closing. If you plan some property renovations right away, it's helpful to have some cash in hand. Of course, you can use your own resources, but there are other options. The seller can give you cash back at the closing. This can be negotiated at the time of the offer or after the home inspection if you find items that need to be addressed. If you're getting conventional financing, there is probably a limit to the amount of cash that the seller can contribute. Normally, the bank will want you to have some of your own cash in the project, some skin in the game. You can apply for a 203K or other type of rehab loan. These are loans that allow you a pre-agreed budget to make repairs and improvements to the property. Normally, you have to do the renovation first, according to a schedule of work that you prepare and the bank approves. There will be milestones, and when each milestone is met, you'll receive a chunk of the money that is in reserve. Often you'll have to put up your own money to pay contractors and then be reimbursed after the fact. Veterans and some professionals, like physicians, are eligible for no money down mortgages for their primary residence. If you're eligible and you're planning to live in the home, definitely take advantage of this option. Chapter 7 Action Items. Get pre-approved for a mortgage from a local lender. Talk to friends and family to identify people interested in being part of your project. Find investor groups in your area and start to make connections. Compile a list of people who you can call when you find a great deal. Chapter 8, Pros, Build a Team. Chapter 8, Goals. Understand the professionals you'll need to succeed. Choose reliable people by asking the right questions. Protection, your insurance agent. Regardless of what type of investment you decide to purchase, you'll want some insurance. Make sure your insurance agent understands the use and potential use of the property and that he or she is recommending coverage that would protect both you and your tenants in case of a problem. My friend Nancy had a fire in her multifamily. The insurance paid to rehouse the tenants, but was not sufficient to improve the damaged areas to comply with the current building code. Would you have known to ask that question of your insurance agent? I wouldn't. And that's why finding a reliable agent is so important. Finding the right insurance agent. Like with so many things in life, you don't know what you don't know. Pete Hines said it best in his book, Omniscience. Knowing what thou knowest not is, in a sense, omniscience. This was certainly the case with insurance. When I sat down with Paul Rizzo of Rizzo Insurance, I thought all insurance agencies were created equal and that the only categories were life, home, health, and auto. Luckily, Paul is very experienced and patient. He took the time to educate me enough to realize that there is a staggering amount that I don't know about insurance. It was luck that led me to hire Paul as my agent. But if you don't want to rely on luck, he says to look for these factors in selecting an agent. Years in business. The more experience, the more chance they'll find any potential problems early. Website reviews. Read the worst reviews to see what can go wrong. Better Business Bureau. See if any complaints have been filed. Company financials of insurance carriers and insurance broker. An A+ rating means the company has an excellent credit rating. A lower rating could mean the company doesn't have the money needed to pay your claim. Ask how they vet the insurance carriers they represent. If they give you a blank stare, keep shopping. Ask how the agent is filling the knowledge gaps about the property to be sure he's recommending the appropriate coverage and limits. Paul always requests to see the home inspection report, for example. He also searches property history for things like past fires or other types of damage claims that could impact the safety of the property. What proactive processes are in place to ensure that you have the appropriate coverage going forward? Are there annual reviews of policy, etc.? Search for complaints against the insurance broker with your state's Division of Insurance. Take your time and ask lots of questions. Paul says a good insurance agent is an educator first. Finally, Paul recommends that you trust your gut. If you're not satisfied with the answers you're getting, or if the agents seem uptight or evasive, just keep shopping. Remember, this is a partnership and you don't want to settle for mediocrity. Not that we don't love the IRS, your accountant. As we've discussed, a great advantage that real estate has over many other investments shows up at tax time. Pretty much everything that you do to make your property more valuable is tax deductible. Also, all of the tools that you buy to maintain the property, the truck that you use to plow the snow, the lawnmower, the new granite countertops, and the mileage that you incur going to visit your investment are deductible. If you hire helpers, their salaries are also tax deductible. This is where a good accountant can really be worth her weight in gold. The first time I met with my accountant, he suggested that I refile my previous year's taxes with a few adjustments that saved me more than his preparation fee for the current year. If you don't already have a good accountant, make that a priority for the year. Finding the right accountant. How can you find an accountant, and how can you be sure that the person you found is any good? As with the rest of your pro team, ask for referrals. When interviewing, look for an accountant who's up to date on the current code and is suggesting legal ways to avoid paying taxes. It seems that good accountants are excited about saving you money and not focusing on the possibility of an audit. Be sensitive to the calendar as you plan your interviews. Don't ask to meet with them in April, for example. It's probably best to avoid a CPA who also wears other hats. I know an attorney who is also a CPA. He's obviously a smart guy, but people who use him for taxes rarely get them submitted on time. And I question how well he can be keeping up with the miles of the new tax code that come out every year. It's logical to think that his clients could be missing possible deductions and taking deductions that are no longer allowed. Show me your money, the mortgage person. Regardless of what route you choose to fund your project, it makes sense to have a mortgage person on your team. An experienced mortgage broker or loan officer will offer a wealth of services, from helping you to improve your credit score to informing you about loans and programs custom tailored to your situation. As with your insurance agent, your loan officer should be an educator first. In preparation for a loan, work toward getting your credit score as high as possible. There are three buckets that lenders scrutinize when deciding whether to loan you money. First is credit score. The absolute minimum is 620. 740 or more is great and gives you the best rates and most options. Pay everything on time. Having an overdue bill for $1 has the same impact as a $10,000 overdue bill. Keep an eye on your score and resolve any issues or inaccuracies immediately. 2 is your down payment. 25% is required in most areas for a multifamily if you won't live there, and 20% for a single family if you won't live there. It can be as low as 3.5% down payment for owner occupants. And the bank will be looking for you to have at least 3 months of payments in reserve after you pay the down payment. Debt to income ratio. Minimum payments on all monthly bills divided by your monthly income. The target is 43%, the max is 50%. And 75% of the rental income from the property counts toward your income. Work with professionals whose communication style suits yours. Get a good team of trusted advisors to help educate you on your journey and understand the numbers. Go to EYIMbook.com for a list of do's and don'ts when preparing for your loan pre-approval. Attorney. Depending upon where you are in the world, you may be required to have a closing attorney. If you're getting a bank loan to purchase real estate, in some states, only an attorney can receive funds from the bank. The bank's attorney is called the settlement agent, and he or she must be approved by the bank before processing your file. If this is the case in your state, find out as early in the process as possible if you can retain your own attorney and have that person act as settlement agent. If your state does not require attorney settlement agents, retaining an attorney to review both the circumstances of your purchase and your paperwork can be a worthwhile investment. Most real estate attorneys have seen dozens of examples of what can go wrong during real estate transactions. Everything from the house burning down just before the closing to finding out that there's no legal access to the property. And they've created documents and riders to address the unexpected. For every 5 transactions that go so smoothly that you don't really need an attorney, there will be one where an attorney saves you her weight in gold. Finding the right attorney. As with any professional, be sure to research your chosen attorney with the state licensing board, attorney general, and any agency like the Better Business Bureau that could have received a complaint against the person. Ask the following questions. Communication. What can you expect for response times? How will you and your attorney communicate? Billing. Is there a flat fee or will you be billed hourly? What is considered a billable event? For example, can you call and ask a question without being billed for the time? Meet the team. Is there a team or is your attorney a one-person show? Understand who is responsible for each aspect of the transaction. As a real estate agent, I once had a buyer whose attorney didn't use a computer. His secretary printed out his emails. He would read them and handwrite the response on the paper. She would then respond to us via email. The process was slow and cumbersome, and there was plenty of room for error. Several times the transaction almost fell apart because the seller felt the slow responses meant that the attorney was not trustworthy. If you're someone who likes to communicate by text or email, make sure your attorney is also comfortable communicating that way. Try to be reasonably certain that the attorney, the team, and the process are a match before adding the firm to your pro list. Contractor. If you've decided to add value to your property by renovating, you have 3 options on how to proceed. Do all of the work yourself. This is an excellent choice if you have some prior experience and or the time and energy to devote to learning how to do the projects you've not yet attempted. It also usually takes more time to do the work yourself, so factor that into your holding costs. Do some work yourself and hire subcontractors, subs, to do the rest, supervising them yourself if you have some experience in and around construction. Maybe someone in your family is a carpenter, a contractor, or an architect. You can choose to take on certain tasks yourself and hire others, like a plumber and an electrician, to do the rest. This approach has the potential to save you money and to teach you a lot about the process. It also has the potential for cost overruns and headaches if you fail to manage your subcontractors correctly. Hire a general contractor, GC, to supervise the entire project. This could cost a bit more as the GC has to be paid for her time, but it can save a lot of money in the long run. Normally, a GC will draw from the same pool of subs for each job. The GC and subs will have a history of working together and will have developed mutual respect and an understanding of each other's work styles. Because the subs rely on the GC for a good amount of their work, they will normally prioritize the GC's to-do list above yours. This means that your renovation has a better chance of coming in on time and on budget than if you work directly with subs as an inexperienced developer. If you choose this route, you still have to manage the GC. The more hands-on you are, the better the outcome. No one choice is better than another. In all cases, your success depends on you. If you're doing the work yourself, you'll need to know when you're in over your head and when your desire to finish exceeds your capacity to do the work. In my projects, I tend to do as much as possible myself. I've realized that, with the exception of demolition work, there comes a point of diminishing return. Whenever I've decided that I'll just push myself to do one more thing, I'm so tired that I mess it up and it all has to be taken down and redone the next day. Whether you're hiring a GC or subs, you'll need to choose wisely and manage them well. Even a great GC will let your project fall to the bottom of the priority list if you're not the squeakiest wheel. I asked Ann McNeil, president of South Florida's first African American female-owned construction company and a licensed general contractor, for her suggestions on finding and working with good contractors. She says, ask for referrals from trusted friends and contacts. Always get at least 3 references, contact them, and ask these questions. How many projects have you done with this person? Was the project completed on time, on budget? How many times did the scope of work change? Would you hire this person again? Trust your instincts. Sign a labor-only contract and you buy the materials. Know your rights. The contract must have deadlines and penalties for missing them. It must spell out exactly the work that has to be done, who will do it, and when. If you're working with a GC and a subcontractor doesn't perform or makes a mistake, the GC must be the one held liable. Address issues at the first inkling of trouble. Don't ignore minor problems, hoping things will get better. This seems like a lot of work, doesn't it? It is a drop in the ocean compared to the hassle of trying to complete a project when your GC or subs won't return your phone calls, the finance person is on your back to get the house sold, and you're watching the busy autumn market disappear into the abyss of winter. Remember, hire in haste and repent at leisure. Detour working with contractors. When creating budgets, you could just take the quote that your contractor gives you as gospel. If you do, you must understand exactly what that number includes and does not include. If their contractor expects you to pay for permits, materials, equipment, rentals, etc., or if there are parts of the project that are not being managed by the contractor, be sure you understand this going in and include those items in the budget. Also, your contractor's budget is only informational unless it's in writing and signed by both of you. Jane, who we mentioned earlier, has had success with her contractor by offering a bonus for work done on time and at or under budget. Others use the stick approach, assessing fines if the terms of the contract are not met. Think about the impact to you if the work is done earlier or later than you planned. If having the work done early will allow you to rent the space a month earlier and get more rent, offer to pass some of that good fortune along to your contractor. Not meeting the contract dates will increase your holding costs and could cost you rental income, so pass that along as well. All of this must be negotiated up front. If there's no consequence one way or the other for your contractor to finish the job, you may find her giving priority to another job and letting your dates slip. Getting this worked out up front will save you from hassles later on when you have less bargaining power. Real estate agent. When starting out, your real estate agent should be your lifeline. She will be able to educate you about the market, how to negotiate, and what's important, as well as give you access to a group of trusted advisors who have worked together before and can ensure your transaction goes as smoothly as possible. She will also help you stay calm and focused throughout the process. The real estate agent's job is 50% transaction and 50% psychological, helping both you and your purchase over the bumps. Elias Papadopoulos of Remax Unlimited in Brookline, Mass., says that to be sure you're working with the right agent, ask yourself these questions. Do I like her? No matter the answers to the other questions, you'll be spending a lot of time with your agent, and if you think she's a jerk, you'll be miserable. Do I trust her? You are hiring an agent to take advantage of her experience. If you don't trust her, you're not going to listen to her advice. We've talked before about trusting your gut. If your gut says you can't trust her, look for someone else. Does she know what she's doing? Your agent must have the knowledge or access to the knowledge to help you find, evaluate, and purchase properties that meet your need. If she only knows as much about real estate investing as you do, keep looking. You don't want to be the smartest person in the room. Does she understand your criteria and respect your boundaries of risk tolerance, area, etc.? What's under the hood? Your home inspector. Unless you have some type of construction experience, it's a good idea to have a home inspector. Normally, the home inspection is part of a purchase contingency, meaning that if the home inspector finds a problem that will cost more than an identified amount to fix, you can cancel the sale and have your deposit refunded. Not all states have licensing requirements for home inspectors, meaning that any Joe or Jane can call themselves a home inspector. Even in areas where they are licensed, not all home inspectors are created equal. Todd Whiting of Metro Boston Property Inspectors suggests that you start interviewing home inspectors as soon as you start looking at properties. You'll often have a week or less to perform the home inspection based on the contingency dates, and that may not allow enough time to both vet an inspector and schedule an appointment with your chosen professional. To find a good inspector, start by asking your friends and real estate agents for referrals. Contact the various firms and ask, are their employees licensed? What type of insurance do they carry? Errors and emissions, workers' comp, and liability at a minimum. What types of certifications do they have? What else are they trained to do? For example, radon detection or pest inspections. How long have they been doing inspections? Will I be able to ask questions and accompany the inspector during the inspection? How much will the inspection cost and what is covered? The average home inspection should last between 1 and 3 hours. It's best if you can accompany the inspector, as she will usually share maintenance advice and information. Chapter 8 Action Items. Interview at least 2 referred people in each field and assemble your pro team. Chapter 9 Making an Offer. Goals for Chapter 9. Understand the psychology of offers. Learn to research the seller. Be sure you have an exit strategy for the property. So you found a place you like, the numbers work, and you're ready to make an offer. Congratulations. First, a word of warning. Once you make the decision to invest in real estate, it can be very tempting to hurry up and get started. Before you pull the trigger, make sure you've checked all these boxes. Compare the property against similar ones in the area for cap rate, condition, and amenities like parking. Consult a real estate agent or appraiser who is familiar with the area to understand the market conditions. Is this type of property in demand? Is it trending up or down? Is there anything going on in the neighborhood that could affect your property value? Is the property rented, and is the rental situation favorable? How do these rents compare to those in similar properties? Beware if rents are much higher than the norm. There could be something fishy going on, and even if it's all on the level, you may have trouble finding new tenants who will pay the same amount. Are there opportunities to improve the property or do something else to improve your cap rate over time? Do you have an exit strategy? You should always have 3 options for the property. For example, I'm going to buy this house, tear it down, and put up a larger building. If the city won't approve that, I'll fix it up and sell it. If I can't sell it for my target amount, I'll rent it. All 3 options should work for you financially. Once you've ticked the final boxes, now what? In any market, some things are always true. You want to buy right and get the very best fair deal that the seller is willing to make. You also want to let the seller know that you're the most qualified buyer. So that means showing up front that you're the person who has what it takes to bring the transaction to a close. Go to EYIMbook.com for a list of what to include with your offer. Deliver these documents to your agent or the person who's representing the seller. If the property is for sale by owner and the seller has no intermediary, it is in your best interest to find a neutral third party to handle the deposit. Avoid giving any money directly to the seller until the seller has the means to give you the title. The big question now, how much do I offer? You want your offer to be high enough to be accepted, but no higher. In reality, there will be one number that you will not want to exceed. We'll figure that out soon. It's always helpful to learn all you can about the seller and their pain points. Try to find out the following information. Why are they selling? How soon do they need or want to close? How much did they pay for the property? How much of a mortgage do they have? How long has the property been on the market? Are they behind on real estate taxes, mortgage payments, water, etc.? What is the current market value of the property? To answer these questions, you'll need a combination of online and offline resources. Start when you see the property in person for the first time. Ask the agent why the owners are selling, their ideal closing date, and whether they've had other offers or a lot of interest. If it's an open house, listen to what others are saying about the property and take note of the number of people attending. Online, start at the tax assessor's website. You can usually just plug the name of the town plus tax plus assessor into your favorite search engine. Most towns have their records available online. From there, you can find out the owner's name. Use this to search the Registry of Deeds website for that county. Many also allow you to search by address. I recommend doing both. Try to find the deed when the current owner bought the property and work your way to the present. Look for liens, orders, mortgages, etc. Anything that can give you an idea of the owner's situation. For more in-depth research tools, visit EYIMbook.com. Crafting the offer is also a matter of philosophy. Many buyers just want to go and make the absolute best deal they can. That makes sense, of course, but if you can get the property for a price that allows you to make the profit margin that you've identified as ideal, do you really beat up the seller for an extra $5,000 just because he or she is desperate to sell? Think about karma, or at least about your reputation if you plan to buy and sell more property. The listing agent for the property, or even the seller, may be in a position to bring you a great deal later on, and they're much more likely to do so if they see you're treating all parties fairly and with respect. Once you've submitted your offer, the seller must respond before the offer deadline. The response could be an acceptance, a rejection, or a counteroffer. A counteroffer is the norm. It basically says, thanks for your offer of X dollars, but I'd really like to have at least Z dollars. You compare Z dollars to your ideal purchase price, and then you can do the same, either accept, reject, or counter. Buyer's market. When there's more than 9 months worth of inventory, it's considered to be a buyer's market. This means that there are more sellers than buyers, so buyers have an advantage. They can be fussier and less flexible. Use your research to find the people who have the most compelling reason to sell and offer them the lowest fair price, factoring in your repair budget, market conditions, and a comfort margin. If they don't want to accept your price, leave your info and tell them to get back to you if they change their minds. Make a note to check on these properties in a few months. If they're still on the market, you may find the owners more willing to negotiate. Seller's market. In a seller's market, you often find properties selling for more than the asking price. Inventory is limited, so when a property does come on the market, anxious buyers will bid against each other, driving prices up. If you can avoid this scenario, it is best to do so. Even in a seller's market, some properties are not going to go right away. Maybe they need work, or perhaps the owner priced the property too high. In any case, if you can look for properties that have been on the market for at least a few weeks, you'll likely be able to get a better deal than going to the first open house and getting involved in the bidding mania. Make your own inventory. In any market, you have the option of buying property that is not yet on the market. It is a skill or maybe even a gift that some people have for finding opportunity. While you're out researching your chosen neighborhoods, look for homes that appear run down, deserted, or neglected. Knock on the door, or if you see a neighbor, ask questions. Find the owner's information on the tax assessor website and send them a letter or postcard. Let them know you love the neighborhood, you saw their house, and you're wondering if they've thought of selling. Be honest about the fact that you're an investor and tell them you'd like to develop the home to its potential. Be careful because not everyone will see that their home is in need of work. Some tact will go a long way when speaking with the owner. When you see neighbors during your wanderings, let them know why you're there and ask if they know of anyone who's been thinking of selling or anyone who could benefit from a quick sale. Being creative with elderly sellers or people with special situations can benefit both you and the seller. Making an offer. When making an offer, use the current market value, CMV, as your guide. Because CMV is calculated using closed sales, the information is always at least a couple of months out of date. By the time the property closes, the market has moved on, either up or down, and the CMV will not reflect that. In a seller's market, you'll need to add a premium to the current value. In a buyer's market, you may need to subtract. Use the comparison between selling price and closing price to create a formula that you can use to calculate the correct offer price. Your real estate agent should be able to assist you with this. If you're planning to buy and hold, you need to find the price at which the current or potential cap rate aligns with your financial goals. If you're planning to buy and sell, you have to calculate the likely selling price minus any repairs or improvements that you plan to make and minus your profit. The result is the highest price you should pay for the home. Always look for ways to offer something besides money that could be of value to the seller. Things like letting the seller stay in the property for a while after the closing, offering an earlier or later than normal closing date, waiving contingencies, and putting a higher down payment are all ways to differentiate the offer to the seller. I advise my buyers to get pre-approved for the maximum amount, regardless of the selling price of the property. How do you think the seller will view your ability to buy the property if you submit an offer for $250,000 with a pre-approval letter for $750,000? Selling to you will seem like a slam dunk. I love you, but contingencies are conditions that are put into the offer. They say that if something either happens or doesn't happen, you have the ability to cancel the purchase and have your full deposit refunded. An example is a home inspection contingency that could sound like this. If the home inspector finds problems that will cost more than $5,000 to fix, the buyer can cancel. There's no limit to the types of contingencies that can be put into an offer. In a seller's market, the fewer contingencies, the better your chances of being the winning offer. The more contingencies, the less risk that you'll end up being forced to buy a property that you later discover isn't a good investment. Although it can be frustrating to lose out on a property, take every lost bid as a learning experience. Start a dialogue early on with the seller's agent. Explain to her that you're getting started and that you'd be a good person to know because you'll be buying and selling multiple properties in the future. Give her a reason to stay in contact with you and encourage her to share as much as she's legally able about the winning bid. What made the owner choose that offer over yours? Sometimes it's more than just money. Understanding the advantage of the winning offer can help you craft your offers better in the future. Negotiation 101. Seller win psychology. When negotiating an offer, try to put yourself into the seller's shoes. It can help you craft your offer and also keep things amicable. Although you don't have to like or get along with the seller, having that goodwill can make things go much more smoothly and can benefit you in the end. Let's say you're interested in buying a house that's priced at $250,000. Your numbers work at $240,000. You have several options. You can put in an offer for $230,000, hoping that you can meet in the middle. You can offer less than $230,000 and see what happens. You can offer $240,000 and say, this is my highest and best offer, take it or leave it. I suggest that you offer $230,000. Why risk insulting the seller and developing animosity when it's not necessary? The asking price is fair given the market, so why be a jerk? On the other hand, being heavy-handed and offering your highest and best offer right away can also backfire, essentially for the same reason. Transactions seem to go better in most cases when the seller feels at least some level of control. This doesn't always work, and you'll know right away if you've encountered an atypical seller, but start with the assumption that things will flow more smoothly this way. You never count your money while you're sitting at the table. Kenny Rogers, the gambler. You never really know the price that the seller has in mind until he's given you a counteroffer. In the first example, you're offering $230 and expecting a counteroffer of $245. Then you'd go back at $235, he would counter at $240, you'd accept, and everybody would be happy. But what happens if he counters at $240 right away? Unless he says, this is the lowest I'll go, always go back with a counteroffer. Why? Because if you don't, the seller will feel that he should have gone higher and will feel bad about the transaction. You know that 240,000 was the number that you wanted all along and that you can make a good profit at that price. But because the negotiation was too easy, the seller may feel that he made a mistake. Do him a favor and take the extra couple of $1,000s that will come from a longer negotiation. In the end, he'll feel that he squeezed out every penny that you're willing to pay and that he won the negotiation. Although you may feel it to be counterintuitive, trust me, this is a great way to start a transaction. Make sure that when you finally accept his offer, and it should always be the buyer that accepts the seller's offer if possible, he feels like he drove a hard bargain and came out ahead. Know when to walk away. In negotiations, like relationships, the person with the least emotional commitment is in control. That person should always be you. Your best alternative to a negotiated agreement, or BATNA, is often to walk away from this house and buy something else. Always be prepared to do that. This seller may not be ready to accept a price that you feel is fair. Even if you love the house, resist the temptation to go back and rework your numbers. Just smile, say thank you, and ask that the seller contact you if he changes his mind. There are lots of other fish in the sea, and one of them is perfect for you. Chapter 9, Action Items. Identify your target property. Research market and seller information. Calculate your ideal price. Make an offer. Negotiate hard and be prepared to walk away. Chapter 10, Find Your Match. Following are two examples of the types of investor profiles you'll find on EYIambook.com. We've kept lots of information virtual for easy updating and maximum relevance to the current market. The variables are rated on a scale of 1 to 10. So a T rating of 10, for example, means that you have plenty of time to invest in and hold the property. Find your match. The variables for identifying your real estate investment style are time, T. How much of your time can you invest in the project? How long before you need to sell the property or cash out? Money, M. How much money do you have assembled today to invest? Knowledge, K. Your knowledge and ability to do some or all of the work yourself. And risk tolerance, R. How certain do you need to be that your investment will make a profit in the short term? So this is someone who has lots of time. It's T10M2K6R2. So if you go back and read all that. So this is for a residential property. They have lots of time and knowledge, but not much money or risk tolerance. This scenario is perfect for young people just starting out in life. You have plenty of time, but not much available income. You have some DIY ability or the time to learn about home renovation. So step one, you would buy a primary residence that has room for improvement. This can be pretty much any type of residential property, single family, condo, or multifamily home. But if you plan to keep the property when you move, the next one should be better for you in the bank's eyes. If possible, buy a 3 or 4 unit home first, then move to a 2-unit and finally to a single family or condo. If done that way, you should be able to get owner-occupant preferred financing each time. Step 2, work on the house over time. Make high-impact improvements like a new kitchen and landscaping. If possible, add some living area by finishing an attic or basement and some outdoor space by adding or enlarging a deck or patio. Try to avoid making expensive changes that won't add value to the home, like a new roof or upgraded plumbing or electrical systems. Step 3, in 2 years or less, if the market has been going up, sell the house. If not, buy a new house and rent this one. Both options are equally great in different ways. Because you'll be an owner-occupant, in many cases your down payment can be as low as 3.5% of the purchase price. By living in the house for at least 2 of the first 5 years, you'll be able to keep most, if not all, of the profit from selling the house under the current tax law. You need a place to live anyway, so you're not taking on much, if any, additional monthly expense. Now consider a different person with a T1M10K8R8, which is for a residential property. They have lots of money, knowledge, and risk tolerance, but they don't have any time. On the other side of the spectrum are quick flips. They usually require that you close too quickly for traditional financing and that you have some construction knowledge or at least the ability to supervise people who do. The risk is high with a flip because a lot of your potential profit requires that you sell the property fairly soon after buying it. Market conditions, unforeseen repairs, and other factors can sometimes get in the way of a quick sale. If you went this route, step one would be to find a property, one that you can buy well, fix up, and resell quickly. In their book, Flips, How to Find, Fix, and Sell Houses for Profit, Rick Villani and Clay Davis have done an excellent job explaining their proven method of flipping homes. If you're going this route, make this book your Bible. Step two, plan your work and work your plan. Even before taking ownership of the house, have your renovation plan set and your contractor standing by. Every day that you hold the house will cost you money, so get as much as you can in place before you are the one paying the bills. You can even start looking for possible buyers at this stage. Step three, sell and repeat. In any market, the best flipping opportunities are the ones that you create. Select your target market and make sure that everyone in it knows that you are looking for homes and that you'll pay cash and close quickly. EYIMbook.com has many other investment options as well as helpful links, questionnaires, factoids, tips, and tricks that will make your first project go more smoothly. The biggest key to success in anything is taking the first step. As Nike says, just do it. Brain dump, parting thoughts. Don't judge a book by its cover. Just because you're buying a particular type of property, don't let the current reality limit your vision. Always try to determine the highest and best use for the property. Just because it's a retail shop today doesn't mean that it may not be better as a restaurant. Just because it's a single-family home today doesn't mean that it couldn't be a multifamily or condos, or perhaps even be torn down and turned into a brand new building. When possible, get the worst house on the best street. That will give you the best opportunity for growth. Finding the worst house on the worst street is not going to give you the same bang for your buck. And buying the best house on any street leaves you less room for growth. Look for areas where the zoning allows you to do a lot of different things. For example, if there's a residential home in an area zoned for commercial or mixed use, your future opportunities are much greater. Hedging your bets. Because we've already learned that markets fluctuate all the time and real estate is very cyclical, you should always be thinking of ways to limit your risk and hedge your bets. With a commercial property, the more diverse your tenants, the more protected you are. For example, if you already have a restaurant, look for a pet store or something that is completely different. Also look for tenants who have been in business for a while and seem to know how to make it work. The more tenants you have in one property, the lower your risk. Even big players like Circuit City, remember them, can go bankrupt. Something else to consider with commercial space is looking for passive tenants like bulletin boards and signs, cell towers, anything that can give you a more diverse mix of income. When buying, look for mixed use where part of the property is residential and part is commercial. Those parts of the market fluctuate differently, so your resale value should be more stable, and the risk that all tenants will go broke and stop paying rent at the same time is much lower. With residential property, the same is true. If you can have a residential rental that is also has a commercial component, that's fantastic. When you buy, think about where you are in the market cycle. Use that information to help you decide how much of the purchase you should leverage. Go back to chapter 7 if you'd like a refresher on cash versus leverage. Remember your exit strategy. Have at least 3 options for the property to avoid being forced to do something that's not right for the market or the project. Diversify. Did I mention that already? As we've talked throughout the book, to avoid being affected by market changes, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Just because you like having residential tenants and you've always done well with apartment buildings, don't exclude commercial from the mix. Have a mix of smaller and larger properties. Buy some in a vacation area and some in a place where there are schools and hospitals with students and interns who will need temporary housing. Anticipating market changes will help you prepare for them. If you sense that a downtrend is coming, reduce your debt ratio to make vacancies easier to weather. 10-year plan. The best way I've found to avoid being affected by market changes is to buy in every market. Develop a 10-year plan to purchase at least 10 properties using leverage. Year 1, you purchase property A with 20% down and a 10-year mortgage. Year 2, purchase property B with 20% down and a 10-year mortgage. Continue this process for 10 years. In year 11, property A is paid off. In year 11, take out a new 10-year mortgage against property A at 80% of its current value. Take some of the money and put it into the property, upgrading it and taking care of any major repairs that need to be made. The rest is your tax-free profit. Year 12, refinance property B at 80% of its value, and so on. Because it's a loan, not income, you don't pay any tax on it. Your interest is tax deductible, and your tenants are paying the mortgage. Voila, financial freedom. Summary. Let's recap your action items. Write your SMART goals. Create a budget with an eye toward reducing expenses. Create a virtual portfolio in each investment class. Start learning landlady skills. Do the type of investor quiz at EYIMbook.com. Learn market cycles. Find some money. Start building your team. Make an offer on a property. Plan your work and work your plan. There are as many ways to make money in real estate as there are investors. The ideas explored in this book are only a beginning. Find one or two types of investing that resonate with you and find books that specialize in that market. Then do something every day to get you closer to your goals. Congratulations, you're an investor. Testimonials. Brian Tracy, author of Million Dollar Habits and The Way to Wealth, says, this powerful practical book gives you a proven blueprint to become a wealthy real estate millionaire. No one can stop you but yourself. Wilbert Winberg, author of Think, Act, Prosper, says, this book is a goldmine of money-making information in real estate. Chris's ability to strategically guide people through how to start investing in real estate is unparalleled. Thanks for listening. You can go over to EYIMbook.com and purchase your copy of the book, only $10. You can download a version for free. It's on Kindle for $1.99. And I would love to hear any questions or thoughts or insights that you have. You can find ways to reach out to me if you go over to EYIMbook.com. But a fun thing to do is to figure out your investment style. Definitely take the quiz.